All right, let's dive into a story about two cosmic rivals. But this isn't your typical good versus evil slugfest. No, this battle is fought with ideas, with philosophies. We're talking about the sovereign creator, Wotan, and his chaotic reflection, the Crimson Jester. And their whole conflict really kicks off with one fascinating question.
What if a philosophy could bleed? Seriously, think about that. What if an idea was so powerful, so raw, that it could actually take on a life of its own, become a living, breathing, even a suffering being? Well, that's exactly the premise that gives birth to these two incredible characters. So, let's start with our first contender, our thesis, if you will, Wutan, a being who is literally described as the will made flesh. Now, to really get Boytan, you first have to understand the concept he embodies, the Overman. And this isn't a superhero in the way we usually think about them. No capes, no saving cats from trees. The Overman is a being who's moved past old hand-me-down morals, the classic good versus evil stuff, to create their own set of values, to decide for themselves what gives life meaning, right here, right now, on Earth.
So you're probably asking, how does a philosophical idea become a cosmic powerhouse? Well, it happens through a pretty dramatic and, let's be honest, arrogant experiment called Project Zarathustra. They take this frail scholar, Friedrich Nietzsche, a guy already full of illness and despair, and they stick him in what's called a gamma-fueled cage. Their goal? To create a weapon. But they underestimated the sheer force of his ideas, his will to power. It was so strong that it just hijacked the whole process. With a single word, Kimota, the man dies, and Wotan is born. A weapon that instantly refused to be anyone's tool.
So what does this guy actually believe? It all boils down to what's called master morality. First off, for him, it's all about the meaning of the earth. Forget waiting for some reward in an afterlife. Value is created here and now. Second, he's not here to save humanity. In fact, he sees pity as a kind of weakness that just keeps people down. His goal is to surpass humanity, not rescue it. Third, his whole deal is creation. He literally forges reality from his own will, from something called his blood ink, creating incredible things like the Emerald Spire. And finally, and this is the big one, absolute freedom. He doesn't answer to anyone, not a government, not a god, and certainly not some old dusty moral code.
And all of that leads to his personal motto, which is also his ultimate test of strength, the eternal recurrence. Now think about this. Would you be willing to relive your entire life, every single joy, every mistake, every agonizing moment of suffering over and over and over again forever? For Wotan, being able to look at all of that and still say, yes, I will it, bring it on, well, that's the ultimate proof of a life lived with power and purpose.
Of course, for every powerful thesis, there has to be an equally powerful antithesis, and that's where he comes in. The Crimson Jester, a being of pure, unadulterated chaos. So the Jester doesn't just show up, he erupts onto the scene during this chaotic time called the Grand Reckoning. And he's not here to save the day. He's a fire. He's that lightning bolt striking a still, quiet pond. He's here to shatter everything, to bring about radical and honestly dangerous self-creation. But here's the tragedy of the Jester. He didn't start out as this purely destructive force. He actually began with this idea of amor fati, a deep, powerful love of one's fate, embracing all of it, especially the suffering. He was all about blessing the outcasts. But then he gets corrupted by this group called the Red Judges, and his entire philosophy just curdles. It sours into pure nihilism. He starts to believe that if the universe has no built-in meaning, if that God-sized cage is broken, then even trying to find meaning is just a joke. And that right there sets the stage for their conflict. This is so much more than two guys fighting. It's two entire worldviews on a collision course. It is a duel of philosophies. And you can really see how they're perfect opposites here. Wotan is the sovereign, the spire. He's all about structure, will, building things up with his blood ink. The Jester, on the other hand, is the mirror, the conflagration. He's about chaos, irony, and tearing things down with his bleeding irony. Wotan's goal is to surpass humanity, to create something greater. The Jester, he just wants to show everyone how empty it all is. So how do you fight a being who can literally bend reality to his will? Well, you don't throw a punch. You use a different kind of weapon. The Jester's ultimate weapon is an idea, a devastating piece of philosophical math called the uncanny equation. The equation looks simple, but it is just brutal. It basically says the hero is basically the same as the herd. What does that mean? It means Wotan, this great, powerful creator building his spire, is fundamentally no different than the average person, the last man, clinging to religion. And why? Because the Jester argues they're both just building things to hide from the terrifying reality of a meaningless universe. It's an attack designed to rip the very foundation out from under Wotan's identity. And this deep belief in nothingness drives him to his final, tragic, and absolutely insane act. He makes a deal with the Red Judges, a classic deal with the devil situation. The contract says he has to serve them only until he stops dancing. But he turns their own trap back on them. He dances so fast, so intensely, that he literally becomes a supernova. And then, and this is the kicker, he uses the very same keyword Wotan used to be born, Kimota, to commit what's called a sovereign's suicide, blowing himself up just to take out the enemy's fortress with him. And his very last act serves as his very last message, a kind of final whisper from the void. Creation is the arrogance of the weak. I mean, what a final, devastating rejection of everything Wotan stands for. So what was the point of all that destruction? Well, for Wotan, it becomes a harsh but absolutely necessary lesson. He's forced to look into the mirror that Jester provided. You see, the Jester acted as a broken mirror, showing Wotan exactly where his own path could end, in total self-destruction. Wotan realizes that his awesome, solitary power isn't true freedom. It's actually just another kind of prison, a god-sized cage. He understands that to truly survive the void, he can't just be a single isolated peak of strength. He has to evolve, to become a vessel of synthesis, something that can hold two opposing ideas at once, uniting the creative laugh of Zarathustra with the compassionate wound of the Nazarene inside himself. Which brings us to the one final question that really sits at the heart of this whole cosmic drama. Is the kind of absolute freedom that Wotan first wanted, is it a throne that lets you rule your own destiny, or is it just the loneliest cage of all? Definitely something to chew on.